Hey guys, check this out. I have 100% of my peeps in my theme park happy. 100%. And that makes me happier than I probably should be about a old DOS video game. But if you want to see how I got 100% happiness, then I'm going to go over how I laid out this theme park. And at the end, I'll do a speed playthrough of me building the park so you can see how I did that. So if that sounds interesting to you, just keep watching. Alright. So, and as you can see, I really wanted to get that clip recorded right then because they're no longer 100% happy. You can't keep it going, can you? Alright, I just had to restart there because this DOS game is being very temperamental. I guess it doesn't like that many people happy in the park. But I just restarted and I'll give you a quick tour of how I laid out this theme park. Now, I kind of premise this off a couple of things. The first of all being that I really wanted to control the experience of every person in my park. And by that I mean that, for example, in here, I want every single person to first visit the saloon to get their drink need, and then the steakhouse, and then the novelty shop, and then my tube ride. And I'm designing this really so that to fulfill their basic needs first, so the food and their drink, as well as relieve them of some of that cash, and then go to one of my most successful rides and get them super happy so that basically everybody in the park is happy. From then, I start to alternate between rides and places that they can continue to spend their money. And I also am very deliberate in the way I laid out which I guess stores go first. So you see that I started out with the saloon and the steakhouse. Now those are a little bit more pricey options. And the reason I laid those out first is that each person starts out with a certain amount of money. So I want them to spend it on the really expensive options first. And if they have more money, I will be happy to take it in less expensive options. And for those people who don't even have the money for less expensive options, then they don't have to buy there. But if I reverse the order and put the cheaper items first, they may spend, some money on some very cheap fries or very cheap drinks and then not be able to afford the steakhouse. Whereas instead, they could have just afforded the steakhouse and then I would make a much higher profit. So I'm very deliberate in I want every single person to visit stores in a particular order. And I always place the most expensive items first and then the cheaper items at the end. Specifically things like the balloon, I definitely put at the end because it's sort of like, if you have an extra $20, I'll take it. But otherwise, that's fine. So that's kind of the way I lay it out. And for that reason, when they enter the park, I have all these arrow signs to direct them which direction to go. So for my park, they can either go left or right. We focus on the right side first because I've actually done my park in a mirror image and I'll discuss why in a second. So basically they go past here, like I said, they get some drink, some food, some novelty, and then they go on my favorite ride, which is the rubber tubing. And I love this ride because it's fairly early in the research, nice and easy to build, and if you make it long enough, they can go in there super unhappy and leave like extremely happy. So it's just a matter of making the ride long enough. And as you can see here, I just kind of laid it out in a snake pattern. Obviously somebody needs to go and repair this. Excuse me, my panic. Alright. Okay, stop flying. It's very distracting. So I had let it out kind of in a snake pattern. And so once these kids go to this rubber tubing, they should be happy. And that's really how I got the happiness in my park up so high. Now, sometimes, like now, they can't actually enter the ride because it's under renovation. So this isn't going to be my only ride in the park. It's followed very quickly by the roller coaster. Maybe I'm a little biased. I personally don't like riding on roller coasters, never have. So this is not really one of my favorites. I also find it very annoying to lay out because I can't exactly, or maybe I can, but I feel like it would be unsafe. Lay it out in this very tight snake pattern. So it takes up more space. At the beginning, when you first get the ride, there's only like 4 cars, I think, per ride. So you end up with this super long line. You'll see in the rubber tubing, there's no line. I've never seen anybody wait in a line. It does have a ride capacity of 34. I think initially it's 30, 28, something like that. But I've never actually seen anybody waiting in line. So as long as it's open and not under renovation, this one's open. Roller coaster, I love it less, but I put it in. It still makes peeps really happy, so yeah, I put that in there. And then after they get out, I have like a little gambling, the coconut shack. What did they call it? The coconut chai. And then I have my fries, of course, super salty fries, followed by a drink to quench your thirst, a bathroom, a little bit more gambling, and then I do have a couple of other, not my, I kind of like all these track rides just because they give so much happiness, especially if you make the track really long. I do have a couple of like normal rides in between. So I have here the medieval axe. It is one of the more interesting ones. However, even though it takes 24 in the beginning, and now I've researched it so that it takes 33, but lines still do form, which is why I like these rides a little bit less, but you want a lot of rides in there to get a good perk score. So I have this, and then again, I keep feeding them so that to keep the needs up, first of all, and to kind of lead them with all that money. So I have my hamburger stand, another ride, the ice cream, that's always a popular one, observatory, and then, like I said, that balloon one near the end to relieve them of any extra cash that they're carrying. And then I ended with one of, again, my favorite rides. This one comes further down along the research track, but I still really like it. It's the same idea as the rubber tubing. Make the track super long, and people will end up happy. And this is a nice one to put at the end because I want everybody to leave happy so that when they go home, they tell their friends, more people come. I don't actually know if that works that way, but it's a nice thought. So I put this at the end, and this is particularly useful if they were on one of the previous rides like rubber tubing and maybe got thrown off and a little less than happy, or for some reason it was under construction and they couldn't get on. This is another chance for them to be happy. And again, this is one where I've never seen a line, so that's really nice. I don't have to worry about people missing out unless it's under renovation. And then at the end, these ones were kind of last minute additions, so they are a bit of a pricier option, but again, a last minute grab to see if anybody has some cash. So I have here just the Toyland, gun shoot, racetrack, and the gift shop. Really just to bleed them dry of any money. And then, so you can see it's kind of like a snaking pattern all the way up, and then they just walk all the way straight down and they can exit my park. Now, like I said, I laid out the left side as pretty much a mirror of the right side. And my thinking to this was really crowd control. So I'm not sure exactly how extreme crowds affect the shops, whether it will impede people's ability to get into the shops. For sure, things like the regular rides and the roller coaster, if the line is too long, they can't join the line and they'll miss out. And I also don't want, like, nobody has the patience to walk through an entire park. So I figured they have the patience to walk through half a park. So in order to alleviate the kind of crowd control, I kind of split the crowd into two. Half can go on the right, half can go on the left. For some reason, most people go right and less people go left. I'm not sure why that is. But that's kind of why I did that. This is the area where maybe I think I could improve my park design. I have a feeling that large crowds don't really affect a shop's ability to keep up, only the rides. So if I could have like a common shop area and then maybe rides where people could go again left or right and do the rides and then go to another common shop area. The trick is trying to keep them going in one direction and still maintaining like the order that I want them to experience the rides and the shops. that would be a tricky one. So maybe I'll try that next run. But for now, this one isn't too bad. As you can see, this one doesn't even have a crowd. And again, this goes back to the fact that for some reason, people don't like the left side. Most people go on the right side. That being said, left side takes enough people that I saw a pretty big difference when I kind of opened up the left side. What else is interesting on my park? Oh, the end. So at the end, you know, at the year end, they always have all those awards, and for each gold award, you get $10,000. So one of them is ride. It's something about like how many different types of rides you have. And so in order to do that, I have a bunch of the rides that I don't really like so much. Either they're kind of boring or they're really hard to maintain. I don't really feel the need to put them in my park. I don't need those rides to make people happy, but I do want the ride award. And I feel like it improves the number of people who will want to go in. It definitely affects the ticket price. You can charge more even though nobody can get to these rides. So I just put a bunch of the rides at the back. So in the end, I actually have one of every single type of ride. At least one. Obviously duplicates for the ones that people can actually go to. But yeah, I just put them at the end here. Nobody can go on them. They don't need any maintenance because nobody's using them. But it helps to up my ticket price and get that year-end award as well. Other than that, I have quite a number of employees. I have, how many mechanics do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay, not that many. But I also don't have that many rides. And I think most of the delay in them getting there is simply them walking because they're kind of slow. But I think it's enough. I do have quite a bit more handyman, and I try to limit the amount of work I put them through. So for example, one handyman just does this row and this L section. Another handyman does this row and this L section. So I kind of give them fairly short routes. Handyman in this very old game with lots of bugs kind of have an issue where sometimes they forget what they're doing and they really just do nothing. So I constantly have to kind of look to see if there's a section with a ton of garbage. Probably the handyman went a little crazy and forgot what he was supposed to be doing. So that's the only kind of annoying thing with that. You'll see that I don't have a whole lot of decor. I really focus on other aspects, and then at the end, I just added a couple of things. I have a little bit of ponds here. The middle section was nice for some plants, but really it's kind of superfluous. I don't think it does that much, so I didn't focus too much on that at all. And then the other thing that I added in is there are a couple of entertainers. I think there's just 2 or 3. They don't really entertain people because as people walk past them, I don't think they really get entertained. It's only when they're in line, and I really try to keep my line short. You'll see all my lines are super short because people get unhappy when they're waiting in line. And to be honest, as long as they can get on either the rubber tubing or this race track, they'll be happy with just that one ride. Like, it doesn't really matter. So I just add a couple with very, very short lines. I don't want them to wait in line too long at all. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about my park design. If you guys have any suggestions on how I can make this even better, definitely leave them down in the comments below. And with that, let's go through a speed playthrough, I guess, of how I got this park. Alright, so this is how I started off with. When I started off, I obviously don't have much researched, so I need to just use whatever is there. And this is not my first theme park, so I had money saved from my previous theme park, and I basically maxed out the research right away. Right. Sorry, like I was saying, I maxed out the research right away, and then I'm really waiting on a couple of key shops and rides. Definitely the rubber tubing, like I said, I love that ride. And then the saloon and the restaurant. The saloon and the steakhouse, sorry. So in the meantime, I just did a very simple park design. Started to get more people in my park, collect a lot of money, but this is really not my final design for sure. As you can see, at first, I was really focusing on the rides because I really wanted the rubber tubing, and as a secondary one to focus on the shops. However, I ended up switching to rides and the like the warehouse upgrades, just because I got so annoyed with having to order all the time. I'm really not good at keeping on top of that, and as more and more people go to your park, that becomes harder and harder. So I did invest a lot in that. The other nice thing about the warehouse upgrades is that it's linked to buying larger buses, which obviously affects how many people go to your park. Now, at this point, it looks a little crazy because I have a very, very small park and lots of people in it. So I really just waited. Was waiting for those key things. And I knew what I wanted. I wanted the novelty shop, the saloon, and the steakhouse. So as soon as I got those and the rubber tubing, like I was set. I slowed the speed right down. I know it doesn't look like it here, but I did. And I started with the first part of my park design, which was making them happy through rides and making sure that their drink and food needs were met while getting them to spend lots of money. And it's always a little awkward when I'm building it. I do build it, and I think this works, that you get charged on the ride depending on how long it is, but you can start with a very short rubber tubing track, buy it, so that's where your money outlay goes to, and then build the track out to like super long and then connect it all, and you don't end up having to pay as much. So there's a little hack. So as you can see, I started snaking them around. You do have to be quite careful with where you place the paths, because I didn't want a path down the middle going back down, so I needed to make sure there was like that path and then a grassy square column, and then I could snake around. So I modified my paths a little bit as I was building them. But fortunately, in this, I can't quite remember where I built it. This isn't the UK, this is somewhere else. But it's similar to the UK, where it's a pretty rich economy, lots of people, and pretty low inflation, which is important, as I found out in one of my other theme park builds, in that all my shops and my rides and everything were pretty cheap compared to my bank balance. So if I have to move things, unfortunately in this very, very, very old game, you can't actually move things. You can only take them out, which kind of, you don't get any of the money back, and then you have to buy a new one. So if it's too expensive, that's a problem. So, did that. As you can see here, I got the roller coaster. I, with great reluctance, built one. Because it is kind of like a good ride. It makes people really happy. It's just not really one of my favorites, but I did build it. And as you can see, when I'm ordering goods, you see that the saloon and the steakhouse by far are the most popular, and that's because it's the first one people hit, so they still have lots of money to afford those things, and they're super hungry and super thirsty, so they'll definitely want to make use of those shops. They don't always go to like the fireplace or the Poke-Cola or the burger place. The other thing that I like about putting the expensive ones first and the cheaper ones behind is that if somebody has like a more limited budget and they don't want to buy such an expensive place as a steakhouse, they can still go to the burger place later. But if somebody is willing to spend more money, I want them to give them the opportunity to do so and not satisfy their hunger at the burger place and not buy my more expensive steak. So that's another reason why I like to lay it out this way. And as you see, I just keep expanding the snake. as I research more and more. And that's one of the annoying things with this is that you really have to research things as you go. So you can't just go in, even if you have the money, you can't just go in and lay out your theme park exactly as you want it. You have to wait for the rides and your shops to be researched first. Finally, the only reason why I researched the new features, I think it's called, is really to get that nice bathroom. I don't really put a lot of trees or anything, so I dumped just enough in there and waited till I got the nice bathroom, and then I basically stopped researching in that area because I'm not really going to use anything for that. But definitely rides is a huge priority for me, as well as shop development. Once I get the race car, I do tend to scale back research a little bit on rides and focus it more on shops, and a little bit as well on the staff, because I do want those mechanics and those handymen to do a better job. It is kind of negated a little bit simply because of the number of bugs in this game, but I thought it would do something. So yeah, at this time, I'm just kind of building it out. I'm getting better and better rides. I did want to kind of intermix them a little bit, shops and rides. So I was waiting for things to be researched. And as you can see, I'm always going into that order screen. It drives me nuts. But that's what it's like to play it on the, what did they call it, full mode? So yeah. And as you can see, it's getting busier and busier. I think I did keep researching the bus upgrades. So you're getting more and more people. Actually, at one point, I think once I reached a warehouse of maybe like 600 or 800, I kind of took a break on that piece of it. Ooh, yeah! There's the 100%! I'm so pleased with that. So once I got my warehouse to about 800, that released a lot of the pressure. You still have to go in there pretty often, but I kind of pulled back on that so that I could get that ride and shop development so that I could really build out my theme park. And then once I got more or less all the rides and shops I was looking for, then I pumped more money back into the warehouse and the bus upgrades, because obviously more so for the bus upgrades than the warehouse upgrades at that point, because I wanted more and more people in my park. And once you get to about 800 for warehouse space, I don't think the extra 400 makes a huge difference. Even at the end, and I can't remember if I maxed it out, but in my final park, I was at 1200, which means that I rarely need to go in there. So that's really kind of overkill, but the upgrades are not that expensive, and when you have, I don't know how many million I had at that point, it's inconsequential. You see here that I'm really just monitoring my metrics all the time. I had a guy that was like stuck all the way at the end, and he was almost impossible to get out. I ended up having to build some rubber tubing and then a path over the rubber tubing, because I put a path right underneath him and he wouldn't take it. So anyway, it was, when they get stuck, it's really like a, I don't know, just a bug in the game, where it's really hard to guide them out. So kind of mix around with the rubber tubing and different paths to try and lead them away. Now this is another annoying thing about the roller coaster. It kept complaining that my ride was too old, so I replaced it, but that deleted the entire track. Then I had to rebuild it, which annoyed me greatly. Another reason why I do not like the roller coaster. And by the end of my build, it complained again that my roller coaster was too old, and I refused to replace it. I wasn't gonna do that again. However, I never got any message that my rubber tubing or my racetrack was too old. So I guess those ones are more reliable, like long term. Another reason to get them. Next time I should really just get rid of my roller coaster, like not even build it. All I do is complain about it anyway. this is where I had a year end and I kept complaining that my ride diversity was too low. So I was like, I'm just gonna build it like all the rides at the back, which got me a gold for that award. And I also upped my ticket prices like a lot. Like people pay like 500, I think, to get into my park. Okay, still 420. It gets to 500. So you see I go into the research quite a bit, but by this point I was pretty happy with my layout and the number of shops and stuff, and it was getting pretty crowded. Like, look at that. And it looks even crazier because everybody buys from the novelty shop at the beginning, so they all have like this little toy that they're carrying around. Anyway, that place was looking crazy, so I decided to build out the left side of my park. I didn't know I was going to do that all along, but when the crowds were pretty low, there's really no point in doing it. I will wait till your park is a little bit longer. So yeah, you'll see this build is obviously a lot easier because everything's researched. I know exactly how I want to lay it out. I'm just copying the right side. More or less. It is actually a little bit different. It's surprisingly hard to copy exactly, but it's roughly the same. And you see me kind of doing that trick with the rubber tubing where I tried to cheat the system and pay less for it by having a very short ride in the beginning and then building it out. I tested it once when my game was going a little slower and I think it worked, but haven't tested it since. So hopefully I'm not doing that for nothing and it really does work. I should really test it, like go in really and test it, but anyway. And same thing for the race car, same kind of idea. All right. Okay, and this is when you can see I really started dumping more into staff training. There comes a point where there's really not that much to research. So I'm just tossing it into things that make a marginal difference but are not huge. I spent a lot of time trying to fix my handyman and see why they weren't working. Here I'm just kind of laying out the handyman assignments. That's something you should definitely do to improve their efficiency. But like I said, this game has a lot of issues with like handyman forgetting what they're supposed to be doing. And they just really like stay in one spot or they go on a very tiny loop and do nothing while their assignment is like totally trash everywhere. So I'm not sure. I wish they would release some sort of fix for that, but obviously for a DOS game, unlikely to happen. All right, and I have no idea how long this video is, but it must be coming to the end because that is pretty much my build. So again, if you guys have any suggestions on how I can make my park even better, make sure to leave a note in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss more, I'm going to be doing more retro games and maybe some newer ones as well. Then make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.